Buddy. My name is Travis, and I have a Guardian breakdown build for you today. And we're actually going to be using a class that does fit the Warlock well. Unfortunately, like all Stasis subclasses, we only really have one way of healing, but it's not very good. But with this build, I may be able to convince you otherwise. With the combination of our aspects and fragments, along with our choices of weapons and armor, there is no way that you really should be dying out in the battlefield unless Bungie decides to deem it within their realm of possibilities to just kill you themselves. So yeah, let's just hop right on in. So we're going to hop into the subclass first. So for our abilities, we have Healing Rift. Basically, we want to stay as healthy as possible while slaying out in the battlefield. We want our enemies to die while we stay alive. For our movement, we have Burst Glide, because, we Warlocks, when we really invest points into things that matter, we have things that, are just hopes and dreams sometimes, like our speed. So, Burst Glide will at least give us that dream. Penumbral Blast. Honestly, the only reason why I really have this is because Bungie's done a slamming job at giving us options. So yeah, you get to keep this. Basically, just use your melee to throw a projectile at an enemy and they'll freeze. That's pretty much it. Grenade choice, on the other hand, is there, but I would recommend you stick with Duskfield. Duskfield grenade is actually really good for two reasons. One, it'll do good with our aspect, and two, if we don't want to use our aspect and we just basically want to kind of control a centralized area because there's too many enemies, you could just use the Duskfield grenade and it will automatically start slowing enemies down and then freezing them. If you can shatter them quick enough and they're still alive, the process will repeat itself as long as they're in this bubble. So very good to have. Plus, I think the cooldown is quicker than both of them. Yeah. So, you want to kind of have this. All right, for aspects, we have two of them. We got Frost Pulse and Bleak Watcher. Frost Pulse basically states when I use my Healing Rift, enemies around me are now frozen. So, pretty good. Kind of give yourself a little bit of breathing room as well as some benefits from our fragments. And Bleak Watcher. Basically, you just hold your grenade, you chuck this somewhere around an enemy, and it's going to start shooting the enemy. Once it shoots them enough, it's going to freeze them, and then it will move on to the next enemy, and then move on to the next enemy. Before you know it, with the combination of our fragments, you can have like 3 or 4 of these babies on the field and just completely start locking the field down from the enemy, so they can't do anything. So, really good choices. I would not recommend having these two just because you really won't benefit from them as much as the two that I'm currently running with. So, fragments. Been talking about them now, so let's go ahead and go over them. So, Whisper of Chains. While you are near frozen targets or friendly stasis crystal, you take reduced damage. Always good to have that reduced damage. Trust me, especially for endgame content. Whisper of Refraction. Defeating slowed or frozen targets grants you class ability energy. For us Warlocks, that's basically telling us that we're getting our Rift back when we're killing slowed or frozen targets. Hence the grenade choice and of course our Frost Pulse aspect. Whisper of Shards. Shattering a stasis crystal temporarily boosts your grenade recharge rate. Shattering additional stasis crystals increases the duration of this effect. Basically, I bring out a stasis stasis crystal, and I destroy that crystal. I think it's like a 200%, don't quote me, but it's like 200% recharge rate. You're getting your grenade back quick. And that also means if you have a turret on the field and you can destroy a stasis crystal, you can get another turn on the field while the other one's still out. Hence the 3 or 4 that you could potentially have, maybe even more. And of course our last one, Whisper of Bonds. So defeating frozen targets grants you super energy. As you can kind of see here, the whole name of the game is literally freeze, freeze, freeze. So freeze for reduced damage, freeze so you can kill them while they're frozen and gain class ability energy and super energy. And then of course if you're using crystals to do that, then you can destroy the stasis crystals to get your grenades back. So, or you're another Bleak Watcher. So yeah, well, let's go ahead and hop on into our choices of weapons. So before we hop into the weapons real quick, let me tell you about these seasonal artifacts. So Shatter Orbs, basically if I use a weapon and destroy a shield type that matches my weapon, then I will get an Orb of Power. Volatile Flow, so if I pick up an Orb of Power, my weapons, being void, will grant volatile rounds. Basically, I am going to weaken enemies with my void weapon, which, if they have a void shield, that means I can get another Orb of Power. Plus, getting that kill with the said void weapon can also allow me to potentially get heavy ammo, which would be really good to have. And this one, Prismatic Transfer. So, let's say you are in a crew. You're riding with your crew, and your crew consists of an Arc and a Solar Guardian. Well, because they don't have stasis like you do, they will actually get a boost to their weapon damage outputs. But in order to do that, you just need to pop your super. No biggie, right? Yeah. So easy way to kind of get that supporting role to your fellow Guardians. So for our weapons of choice here, we have Fire and Forget. Pretty good, actually very good linear fusion rifle, plus mine has chill clips, so when I can get the shot, each 3 shots will slow the enemy down. If I can follow it up with another one, then it will freeze them outright. Really good to have. For our special weapon or secondary weapon, we have the Tidal Submachine Gun. This is a void submachine gun, so I will be benefiting from volatile rounds as well as the bricks from beyond. Plus, the reason why I have this specifically over Funnel Web and Unforgiven is because of this ability called Classy Contender. It's an origin trait for this weapon. Basically what it does is that each kill that I get with this weapon, I will get my Rift to come back faster. It will give me class ability energy. So, really good way to get your Frost Pulse to pop off more than once. Alright, so our primary choice. We have Verglass Verglass Curve. This is our bow of choice. So we have our intrinsic perk, Hail Barrage. As it says here, this is actually a nice sweet summation of this ability. Basically, when you can get a final blow with this weapon, your next shot will fire stasis arrows. So if the stasis arrows hit the target directly, it will freeze them outright. If it hits around them, it creates a stasis crystal, and you can shoot the stasis crystal for that sweet recharge rate on your grenade, as well as causing shatter damage to your enemies. Now remember, if you spawn the stasis shard near an enemy, that enemy will become frozen. That's just the whole point of the stasis crystals. And yeah, that basically summarizes Hailstorm. So, stasis arrows freeze targets on contact and creates a stasis crystal around them. Alright, so for armor. Remember, the name of the game is healing. So, because we're probably not going to be using a lot of stuff because, healing and whatnot, we're going to make sure we make the most of this build. So we got Harmonic Siphon. So because we do have a stasis a stasis linear fusion rifle and a stasis bow, when we can get rapid final blows with our stasis weapons, it creates orbs of power. And then we have Dynamo. So with Dynamo, when you get up close to an enemy and use your rift, it will reduce this cooldown of your super. Now you can see how this could be really good because this also plays into our armor as well as our aspects and fragments. So we're kind of popping off all together just because of this one ability here, this one mod. And then of course Powerful Friends. So when you pick up an orb of power, you gain what they call armor charges. You can do various things with armor charges, and one of the things I decided to do with this is add Powerful Friends, which when I get an armor charge, my allies also get an armor charge when I pick up Orbs of Power. So really good way for everyone to kind of start using their abilities and start gaining on the mods that they have. Alright, so I have, for my gauntlets, I have momentum transfer. Because we're going to be using our grenades quite often and potentially our turret, when we get damage from that grenade, it will lower the cooldown rate of our melee and our rift. So we can get our melee and rift back faster. Now to kind of help with the melee, because we really don't have too much support with that in this build, we have Font of Vigor. Font of Vigor basically states when you pick up a Orb of Power and you gain an armor charge, it will boost your strength overall. So I think it's like 2 or 3 tiers. It'll just boost it, which will essentially lower the cooldown rate of your strength, being your melee. Same thing with Font of Endurance. Because I don't have tier 10 in my resilience, I supplemented it with this, so that way I can gain, I think it's like 2 or 3 tiers of resilience when I pick up an Orb of Power. I will also be putting a Stasis Reserve mod in here for my Fire and Forget. Basically, I can carry more in the magazine. And then, of course, your armor resistance of choice. I just threw this in here just because I only had 1 point left, and why not? So for our boots or leg armor, we have 2 installations. So when we pick up an Orb of Power, we reduce the cooldown of our rift. And then, of course, every time we pick up an Orb of Power, we get 2 armor charges. So actually very useful to have. So for our bonds, we have Proximity Ward. So when we do a finisher, we will get an Overshield. This would be a really good opportunity to have this, just simply because if you're in a compromising position and you can't bring out your Healing Rift, this will help you get just enough to lay that rift out. Time dilation, so when we pick up an Orb of Power, they will last a little bit longer. So instead of the typical, I think it's like 7 to 10 seconds or something like that, it'll stay around for about 15, which is more than enough time to basically procure the next Orb of Power, if you're not popping like 2 or 3 of them at a time. Speaking of Orb of Power production, we have Reaper. Reaper is an excellent mod to have. It's actually a very powerful mod, just because when you use your class ability, so in this case being the Rift, your next weapon kill, doesn't matter what weapon it is, the next kill will guarantee you get an Orb of Power. So hey, if you want to use it with your bow, you can get an orb from that, and you can get an orb from this. So boom, 2. Alright, I did kind of gloss over this, but let's go ahead and hop into our armor choice here. So we have the Vesper of Radius. This, I swear, makes this build. And here's why. Planetary Torrent. Planetary Torrent states that rifts release an arc shockwave when cast. Rift energy recharges faster when you are surrounded by enemies. Kind of see the overall theme here? You want to be in their face, and you want to heal. So this is kind of where that healing, aggressive healing or aggressive medic comes into play. Because when we pop our rift, our healing rift will activate first, then the frost pulse will activate second, so all enemies will be frozen, thus proccing all of our, well, most if not all of our fragments, and then the shockwave comes, killing all of those frozen enemies, therefore giving us super energy as well as some other things. So if you can kind of see how this is going, it's basically just nothing but healing. So yep, I think that's pretty much the build, to be honest. Really good, very synergistic is what I'll say. I think that's a word. You're going to have a lot of fun with this build. I have a lot of fun with this build. Plus, it looks great. I mean, come on. You guys can't say you don't love this build. I do, at least. But yeah, thank you guys for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel. I do have more content coming in the future. And if you like it, just go ahead and give this video a like. I do have other builds if you want to see them on my channel, related to the different types of elements I have for my Warlock. So, yeah. I will see you guys next time. Till then, ta-ta for now.